The Viking sword has forged a long-lasting legacy that lasted till this day, from the iron that was used to forge them and the blacksmiths that put in their sweat and skills to craft them, to the warriors that gave them names and the deeds they accomplished to carve them legacies. The Viking sword is an astonishing piece of technology that is not given enough credit. The Viking sword consists of many parts, such as the blade, which has a tang and a point, hilt, pommel, grip, crossguard, a fuller which remove material reducing weight and improve the sword structure, and if it is a fancy sword, then some inlays to decorate the blade. As you can see, the earlier and later versions are different, especially the crossguard, and there are many reasons for this. During the later periods of sword making, the steels gradually got better and therefore allowed for more lighter, thinner, and stronger blades, but also paved the way for larger crossguards with their compromising strength, which allowed for better protection in the hands. The benefits of a shorter crossguard allowed for bracing against a shield. As you can see, I have a Viking sword and a longsword from a much later period, and the crossguards are exponentially different. When observing Viking swords, it is clear to see beautiful swirling patterns and inlays in the steel. These swirling patterns are most commonly associated with Japanese swords, and it is a result of pattern welding steels. Scandinavian swordsmiths have been doing this for ages, but because of common media, the credit is given to the Japanese. The process of pattern welding allows the smith to combine different properties of steels where it is needed most by forging the blades with layers of steel. This allows to forge a sword that is resistant to high shock from different directions and still retain a sharp edge for cutting. This pattern welding combined strips and twisted rods of steel which allowed for a blade to be resistant to natural corrosion, as steel that is higher in carbon is victim to corrosion, while steel that has a higher phosphorus content is more resistant to natural corrosion. When thinking of a Viking, you would probably paint a picture of someone like this. While that is not entirely wrong, that was not most of warriors. Most likely they were covered in padded armor similar to what I am wearing, sometimes maybe even their own clothes, and only if you were fortunate to obtain mail from a fallen enemy or rich enough to afford it. Therefore, the shield was very much preferred because it was the cheapest way at protecting the body because of its size, and it was very effective. I am 5'6", the internet says that's average, but for everyone else that's short. But besides the point, my shield is about 33 inches in diameter and it covers more than enough of my body. And while crouched, I can cover my entire body, which is extremely helpful against projectiles. The round shield was very simple, consisting of a boss and planks of wood with a center grip handle which allows you to pivot the shield and deflect an opponent's strikes. The only con to the shield is that it does not protect the legs, which is why the Viking sword is given the nickname of leg biter. The sword can be used with a hammer grip or a more loose version by wrapping your index finger around the crossguard, which makes it feel like the sword is part of your arm. Generally, when striking with the sword, you want to strike at the point of inflection, which is where the blade vibrates the least. So generally, a good way of finding the point of inflection is you take the sword and then you just tap the pommel so that the sword vibrates. And you can see it right there where the sword doesn't vibrate and it kind of converges into one singular point, and that is generally where you want to cut. And when you cut there, or when you hit the sweet spot, you know it because you can make devastating cuts with it. When using the shield, it is best to rest it on your head, which not only protects you but also allows you to put your arm more inwards at a 90-degree angle, which mostly uses your skeletal structure to hold the shield up instead of your muscles, which makes you less tired. With this position, you essentially play a game of peekaboo with your opponent. The shield can be used to deflect strikes because of its single grip, which allows you to transfer the force of the blow instead of taking it head-on, but most importantly, allows you to redirect your opponent's weapon and give you an opening to land a strike. The most common misconception of the shield is that it is purely a defensive object, but in fact it is actually a very offensive weapon that is used very actively to disorient and immobilize your opponent.